Welcome to Girl Choose Yourself, where we're trading self-doubt for self-trust and settling for soaring. I'm Eimear Zone, your host, and together we're building the confidence to create lives so deliciously bold that they scare us a little, but in the best possible way. Because life's too precious to stay cozy in our comfort zones. It's time to choose ourselves for lives that are fabulous and soulfully fulfilling. So let's go. Hi and welcome back. I'm your host, Eimear Zone, and today we're diving into what I feel is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, practices that there is, and that is the practice of self-forgiveness, which I feel is critical for all of us, really essential and really foundational if you want to build true, genuine, authentic confidence, and if you want to truly show up in this world as your most powerful self. So here's what you're going to walk away with from today's episode. You're going to understand the why of why forgiving yourself can feel impossible or really, really difficult. You're going to learn how self-blame, perfectionism, and ongoing self-punishment really keep us stuck, small, and disconnected. And thirdly, you're going to get a practical reflection that I'll guide you through briefly that you can use right away to start softening that armor that forms around our heart when we're unable to forgive ourselves. As Zen teacher Charlotte Yoko Beck once said, our capacity to know joy is directly related to our capacity to forgive. So think about that. The joy that you long for is directly tied to your willingness to forgive, including forgiving yourself. And I think we all want more joyful lives, more peaceful, wonderful lives. So let's jump in and let's start looking, first of all, about why self-forgiveness is so damn hard. It's often the last thing. It's often the last thing that we feel that we deserve. And I think we live in what one of my teachers, Tara Brock, famously calls this trance of unworthiness. This trance convinces us that we are unforgivable, that we are broken in some way. We're defined really by the worst thing that we've ever done, that it's there, it's this darkness, and it's inescapable. We can't let it go or deny it. And it obviously comes from somewhere. Our culture tells us that we're, inverted commas, bad unless we meet certain standards, seemingly impossible standards, and families often reinforce, perfectionism, criticism, or blame. And as children, then we can internalize that. We think it must be my fault. I'm not good enough for some reason, for not having met some expectations of a parent or some important, influential other. So when we do fall short in our lives, in whatever domain, whether it's in parenting or in our relationships, in our professional lives at work, or just being bloody human, we carry this weight then of non-forgiveness, unforgiveness. And I think this is the kicker. We kind of cling to it, not forgiving ourselves, because on some level it kind of feels safer. It feels right. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. And here are three key ones that you may recognize. We think, if I forgive myself, I'll just do it again. If I forgive myself, there'll be the dark or the shadow part of myself will come to the fore. The second one is, maybe if I stop punishing myself and not forgiving myself for this thing, then I'll never improve. So it's kind of used as this form of disciplining ourselves. And the third one is in this category is if I forgive myself for this thing, then I'm letting myself off the hook, and that's not fair because I caused pain. I did wrong and I need to suffer for it. And those beliefs, while they sound rational and right, and you may recognize yourself in some of them, they're really just traps. And those traps are what keep us circling in this field of shame, self-judgment, instead of actually growing. And the cost of it is extraordinarily high. It totally erodes our confidence if we're holding on to things that we feel about ourselves that are unforgivable. Because how can we really stand tall, take risks, go after the big goals and the big dreams when the inner critic is whispering internally saying, you're still not good enough. Remember that thing. You're not worthy. Who do you think you are? I know the truth. So let's look at this kind of trap of perfectionism and self-abandonment, really. This is where I want to bring in the poet Dana Folds, whose work I adore, and she writes in one of her pieces this: do you value your reasons for staying small more than the light shining through the open door? Forgive yourself. Perfection is not a prerequisite for anything but pain. Perfectionism is really sneaky. It convinces us that our worthiness is something that we must earn. And then when we inevitably fail to meet these made up, unreachable standards we should have reached, according to that inner critic, we punish ourselves over and over again. You're not enough. Oh my God, you couldn't do that. Everybody else is able to do that. You're so undisciplined. You're not trying hard enough. You're lazy. That cycle of self-punishment doesn't make us better. It just keeps us small. And it really is a form of self-abandonment. And here's something that it took me a while to really grasp, and it feels really true for me. And it's this: we cannot truly connect with anyone when we're in judgment of them. Not our partner, not our children, not an acquaintance, a colleague, or our friends. And that includes ourselves. It erodes true, authentic connection when we're in judgment. We don't see clearly. And when we stay locked in that self-judgment, we abandon the very relationship that makes confidence possible. And that's the relationship with ourselves. To have a warm, loving, compassionate relationship with ourselves, to be on our own side, to choose ourselves, to see ourselves clearly. Forgiveness then isn't giving yourself a free pass. It truly is an act, I believe, of self-loyalty. It's a way of saying, I'm still here with you, even in all of this mess, this reality of this human life. I'm still here with you. I refuse to abandon myself. Let's look now at what is beneath self-blame. And here's the thing about self-blame. It's often just a cover. I love this story that my teacher told me once when I was in my mindfulness meditation teacher training program. And it's of walking in the woods, and you see this beautiful dog, and You approach the dog, beautiful dog, and then suddenly the dog lurches at you, snarling and baring its teeth. So you go from, oh, beautiful dog, to bad dog. And then you notice its paw is caught in a steel trap. And your heart softens, and you see the suffering beneath the aggression of the dog. That's us. Our badness is usually a trapped paw. It's something unhealed. Maybe it's grief, loneliness, fear, shame, emptiness. And the self-blame acts like the armor, and it protects us. It keeps us from touching in to contacting and knowing those raw, vulnerable feelings that live beneath the surface. And yet when we keep clinging to blame, when we refuse to forgive ourselves, we also keep ourselves cut off from freedom, from joy, from the real fullness of our lives. So the question becomes, what am I avoiding feeling by refusing to forgive myself? What am I avoiding feeling by holding on to this self-blame? And that inquiry alone can start to loosen its grip. So let's look now at really what the process of self-forgiveness might look like. How do we actually practice self-forgiveness? And firstly, and very importantly, it's not one and done. It is a practice. But here is a simple 3-step framework that I found very helpful. And so I offer it to you in the hope that it will be of service to you also. So the first step is really to recognize the story. Recognize the story. Notice when the I'm bad, I'm unforgivable is playing in your mind. Awareness is always the very first step. See it clearly, what is. Step 2 is turning towards the raw feeling that is underneath. Instead of rehearsing and replaying that blame story, ask yourself simply this question: what is this protecting me from feeling? What is this story, this self-blame protecting me from feeling? And allow space for that answer to emerge, because you are wise and you have the answer. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's the feeling of terror that you're unlovable. Allow that to surface and be seen and known. And then the very important third step is to offer yourself compassion. You don't have to force the words, I forgive myself. Those can be very tricky words for people. So you might like to try something like, I can hold this with compassion. Or, this hurts and I'm suffering too. And perhaps a fourth step is really to repeat and return to this practice. Forgiveness, thy confidence, grows with practice. Every time you soften the inner critic in this way, you're building trust with yourself. And really, you can think of confidence as self-trust lived out loud. You can't be withholding forgiveness from yourself and be truly, authentically confident. And I want to share this reminder with you also that forgiveness doesn't erase responsibility. I think I have used self-blame as self-discipline and felt that if I forgave myself for things, it would lead to me being undisciplined. I would lose control in some way. And I think it's really important, this was really important for me to remember that forgiveness doesn't erase responsibility, it allows it. It actually allows it, because when you're no longer drowning in shame, you can finally see clearly what is. You see the truth, not the story. And when you can finally see clearly in that way, you can see what needs to be repaired or what needs to change. And I love this quote from Mahatma Gandhi about forgiveness. And he said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." So it is strong to self-forgive. It's not weakness. Now I want to offer you a guided micro reflection, I guess you could call this, in self-forgiveness. Just something short that you can do while you're listening to this episode. Now, obviously, incredibly smart people, do not close your eyes if you're driving and listening to this. So if it's safe, you're in the right environment, let's try something short together. And I want to invite you to gently close your eyes. Just take a deep, slow breath, bringing yourself consciously into this moment. Deeply breathing, maybe relaxing your shoulders a little. And I want you to bring to mind something, big or small, that you've been holding on to, that you've been feeling guilty about, not forgiving yourself, or something you've been blaming yourself for. And as that emerges for you, I want you to gently ask yourself an internal inquiry. What belief keeps me stuck here? Maybe it's, I don't deserve forgiveness. Or maybe it's, if I forgive myself, I'll just mess up again. Whatever it is, just let that belief emerge. And now gently ask yourself, if I let go of blame, what would I have to feel? If I let go of this blame, what would I have to feel? What's beneath? Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's fear. Just open up, allow it, notice it. And now offer yourself a compassionate phrase. You could say, for example, I choose to hold this with kindness. Or may I hold this with kindness? You might like to put your hand on your heart as you offer yourself a compassionate phrase. I love you. I'm still here with you. Any phrase that gives you comfort. And then take one more breath and gently open your eyes. So here's the truth. Self-blame is just a trance. It just keeps us small. Perfectionism and the ongoing punishment that's inherent in perfectionism is just self-abandonment. And you're not here to abandon yourself. You're here to learn, to grow, to unfold into the most spectacular, magnificent version of yourself. And that takes the courage that Mahatma Gandhi spoke of forgiveness. And remember also that forgiveness is not weakness. It is the most courageous act of self-loyalty that you can make. And when you practice self-forgiveness, you're not letting yourself off the hook. You're letting yourself back into your own heart. And I want to leave you with this, that it's never too late. Here's what Rabbi Salanter said: as long as the candle burns, there is time to make repairs. It's never too late to forgive yourself. So this week, I invite you to practice noticing where you're slipping into self-blame. Catch the story. Touch into what's underneath that story and bring compassion to yourself. That's the real foundational work of building confidence. Really genuine, true, authentic confidence that can fuel you with that very nurturing, clean fuel that allows you to unfold into that most magnificent version of who you are here to be. Okay, until next time, go gently, and as always, choose yourself. Thanks so much for tuning into the episode this week. I hope you got a lot out of it, and if you did, please share it with somebody who you feel would benefit, and leave a review. Always greatly appreciated. Lots of free and paid resources to take things a step further. You can find those in the show notes. And hey, if nobody's told you this yet today, you are amazing, and the world is a far more beautiful place because you're here with us all. Stay cool. Bye.